when is it going to stop? Will it stop? Am I actually going to be bald? You know, I've got no bald friends. This is how in my own mind was about it, and it was a battle, mostly a silent battle as well, just a daily battle that I was just so tired of fighting every day. It's quite scary, really. You think how much that actually can play on your minds in scenarios when it's just ridiculous to be playing on your mind.
Can you tell me more about that?
Wasn't enough to go overcome that mental game that was going on in my head.
You said it was like a daily battle. What were you battling with? First of all, though, mate, honestly, it's a real pleasure to have you here. Thanks for making the drive.
No problem. Thanks for having
down.
me. Yeah.
Down.
Yeah, down across. Yeah, either way. Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, this is. I'm really buzzing to be doing these in-person podcasts, and anytime someone is keen to do it, it's excellent. So thank you, mate. Thank you for being here.
Oh, buzzed to be here. Yeah, first podcast. So
yes. Well, taking that podcast V plates, mate.
Yeah, that's it.
It's a pleasure. But listen, we'll have fun, and hopefully, you'll enjoy the chat. You'll enjoy the experience. I mean, I guess it kind of does make sense then just to dive in, perhaps, shall we?
Yeah,
we've got our coffee, we got our little setup here, we're all comfortable. I mean, I literally know nothing. I literally, other than we talked vaguely in the DMs.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about your experience, but I know it has been quite a fruitful one.
Yeah. I've experienced both sides, so it's quite nice to be able to share that experience with people thinking of doing either. I've done both, so I can kind of relate on how I felt back then to how I feel now.
Yeah. And that's why I'm actually so keen to do this, because I've got genuine questions and intrigue into the sort of psychology of it all, because at the end of the day, that is kind of what this is about. It is very much a mental game, I feel.
Yeah.
Do you want to just go from like the top, the first, kind of discovery days, or
maybe when I was found out I was losing my hair?
I mean, I describe because obviously for some guys they have like quite a strong relationship with their appearance or their hair pre-hair loss, which makes the experience of losing it maybe more traumatic. So I don't know if that was a thing for you, like growing up, school days and that. Like, were you super into your hair, or was it just a thing? What sort of style were you rocking there?
Do you know what? Going through school, I was that kid that really didn't do anything with his hair. Nothing. But it was when I left school. You drop the school uniform, you start having to pick your own clothes, you go to college. I think there's a switch in us where you think, oh shit, now I care about my appearance, because now people might be judging me on how I'm dressing and how I'm looking. And then I think that's where for me, that's where hairstyle came into play there. And I started to be one of those people that I had straighteners. I grew it not like Justin Bieber length, baby kind of back in the day, but it was to a point where, I think a lot of us would, straighten the fringe and, have like this funky little peacock tail kind of thing. It was weird, but it was just what people did. So I maybe over-groomed my hair.
Yeah, okay, so you also did the... how old are you now, by the way?
35.
35, okay, so a couple years older than me. But so you were doing the little bit of a fringe here, and were you spiking it up at the back as well?
Yeah, that's it.
Nice, yeah.
So yeah, that's when I started really caring about my hair. And it was... I don't know why it might have been happening sooner, but the age that I remember really picking up on my hairline, especially going back, me and my friend used to call it the runways, these bits kind of starting trailing back. I was about 19.
Right.
I was about 19, and we used to kind of, pick up on each other's. We're like, oh, buddy, runways are picking up there a bit.
Oh, really?
Okay.
So was this the first sort of discovery or hair loss came on the radar with that?
It was, and then you start kind of examining yourself a little bit closer in the mirror, and you're thinking, okay, because you can tell the tan from, when the scalp starts coming through, it's whiter, and you think, huh, okay, there's a bit more coming through there.
Okay, so it wasn't a case of just for me, in my example, I knew my dad was bald. So it was always in the back of my mind, could that also happen to me? So I would I don't know, once in a blue moon, I'd be checking the hairline.
Oh,
was there anything like that for you? Or was it so you literally just you noticed them? That was the first thing you noticed was just I think my hairline's receding.
yeah, I never really thought about my genes. I mean, right now my dad's got more hair than me.
Right.
You know, he's thin on top, but he's got hair on top. I never look back, and I mean, I should have because both sides of my family are bald.
Okay.
So it was inevitable, but I never crossed my mind. It was yeah, for me, it was just looking at that starting to creep backwards.
Do you remember how you felt at that time? Like, was it a concern, or were you just like, oh,
Huge
well, I'm getting
concern.
old? Okay, instantly, pretty
Yeah,
instantly, it was like, oh no.
instantly you just are so worried about then everything. You know, I think that's when hairstyle becomes more right. We need more hairspray. You know, we need to
Okay.
lock this shit down.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I need to be good in all sorts of weather. Yeah, so it was a big concern for me then. Really, it played on my mind a lot, so much. Yeah, it's quite scary, really. You think how much that actually can play on your minds when you know in scenarios when it's just ridiculous to be playing on your mind. You know.
Mm. Can you tell me
Um,
more about that? I mean, obviously, I know we're going back a few years now, but
yeah, I mean, it's just you know, say going back to college, you know, sat in class, you know, and thinking, oh shit, everyone's looking at me because of my hairline. No one's looking at you. No,
right.
no one was looking at me back then. No one gave a crap about my hair. Like, why would they?
Mm.
Um, but you know, it's things like that, and you know, then you start thinking about the weather. This is obviously going to be quite a popular one with anyone balding. Is wind, rain, you know, anything like that
Mm.
is rather not go out.
So was the initial strategy then just kind of like you said you were receding at the corners there. It was like pull it forward a bit,
Yeah, keeping that fringe. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And then just like as long as you maintained that, you were able to kind of
yeah. As long as I could keep that.
subside.
But then, you know, when it was windy, I'd have this big kind of flap. You know,
Right.
you could feel it. And just think, oh, that might be even worse
Yeah. Yeah.
than balding, really.
So it was on your mind, like you were sort of preoccupied by that,
Yeah,
and what were
yeah.
the sort of you said like can people see it and things like that? Like what were the sort of were the concerns beyond that, or were you just literally thinking like, well, I just don't want anyone to see this because I don't want to have to deal with it in that way?
I mean, yeah. I think the furthering concern is when is it going to stop? Will it stop? Or you know, shit, am I actually going to be bald? You know, I've got no bald friends. This like I'm going to be the first person that's bald. Like that is going to be like the biggest deal. You know, it wasn't, but yeah,
You said yeah, that's how you felt at the time. Is this still sort of 19 years old?
yeah. I mean, this is kind of yeah creeping through. You know, early 20s as well, starting to like go out and well, yeah, going out a lot more. You
Mm.
know, clubs and stuff.
So
That
when you're getting
was
ready, was that like
yeah, yeah.
was that became a priority? Like
It was.
get the hair sorted.
Make sure that's all right. Yeah, don't sweat too much when you're out because you know
Mm.
I had fairly curly-ish hair and thought it gets out of control if it gets wet and oh
So when you're doing that, then you can't be fully like present in these moments or having a good time because you got this hair on your mind, right? Or
yeah,
this receding, this balding hair on your mind. Is that right?
that's it. Yeah, you lose a lot of enjoyment out of certain situations because that is so worrying. You know, like phone parties. You remember back in
Mm.
the day,
Yeah,
phone
yeah, yeah,
parties. You think, oh shit, like this is gonna like
yeah.
this isn't good news. But yeah, you know,
So would you get stuck in those times, or would you be on the sidelines? Would you?
it depends how drunk I was.
Okay, right.
If you get to a point where you kind of forget about your inhibitions,
Okay.
you know, then it wasn't really too bad for me then.
So I kind of equate that to like when you're fully sober, and some people have this thing. I'm sure someone else mentioned this when like you're on the dance floor giving it beans, and there's that little bit of self-consciousness when you're fully sober or whatever, and you're in your own head like, do I look stupid?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
are people looking at me weird? And then obviously you get drunk and you just like you don't even think about that. Was that like the same for you in the
Yeah,
hair then?
exactly. Yeah,
Right.
exactly that. Yeah.
Okay. Can you remember any like during this era, were there any times where someone did mention it to you, or were there any times where it really, I hear stories about guys where they go out and they're wearing a hat or something, and or you know they go home because they're like, no, I can't handle this. Was it impacting you on that level at that point, or not really?
No, do you know what? I don't remember any situation where anyone even brought up my hairline
Right.
or even about my hair necessarily. Like that's what's so crazy that the impact it can have on our mental state when no one's even spoken about it.
Mm. So you're very much in your own head with it,
It
right?
does. It manifests and it grows, and the more you think about it, the bigger, uglier beast it becomes in your own mind. It's the thing with most, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, tell me more about that. And how does this story, develop for you? How does the hair loss kind of progress, and how does the preoccupation progress from there?
For me, yeah, then it started going a bit more thin. You get the island at the front, but I met my now wife, and we were set to get married, and I thought I want my wedding photos to look good.
Okay.
Again, in my own head, because again, my wife didn't care, and that's the only person that should have bothered me, whose opinion.
Mm.
And that's when looking into hair transplants became obsessive.
Okay.
On I need to get this sorted out before my wedding.
Right.
And so yeah, there's a lot of trips up and down to London.
So were you doing anything before this in terms of trying to like prevent the hair loss, slow it down, manage it, other than just the hairstyle you had? What were you doing before that?
Yeah, good point. I was using what's that brand? The foam.
Regain? In the
Regain.
UK it's Regain or
That's
Rogaine. Yeah.
Yeah, I used some of that.
When did you
but
start that?
Probably around 20, 21 maybe.
Okay, so early doors.
Yeah. I wanted to try and get ahead of the game, but it made your hair like wet,
Right.
which then exposed the parts you didn't want exposed. And if you had to put it on X amount of times a day, that's when you were out. And I was at work.
Yeah.
I thought, that's backwards, then, isn't it? I'm not doing that. Like,
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say it makes your hair quite greasy and
yeah,
things like
horrible.
that.
Yeah. And I didn't. It was very mixed reviews on it as well. And I tried it for maybe a couple of months, nowhere near long enough. And I just thought the hassle that's coming along with that, it's not worth it for me right now.
Yeah.
Pretty much all I tried. I'd never wanted to try any of these stronger drugs or anything. And I hadn't really looked into those a huge amount up until I started looking at hair transplants.
Yeah. So can you remember why you weren't keen on that initially? Was it just thinking like, yeah. Can you remember what?
On the stronger?
Yeah, on the stronger stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I've forgotten what the strong one's called.
Finasteride.
That's it. And I'd actually first found out about that one when I went up for a consultation about hair transplant. They had immediately said about some of the side effects. I have issues now with going bald. I didn't see it as a long time. I didn't want to be on that for the rest of my life because the minute you stop,
Yeah.
the hair loss then continues.
Yeah, reality hits home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So unless you want to be on something like that and for the rest of your life, is it worth it for just this short amount of time you want to be on it?
Yeah, the long-term consideration. Okay, that's interesting. So you dabbled with some Rogaine and things like that, but it was the upcoming wedding that made you think, right, actually I want to do something about this, which is really interesting to me. It's like you're in a relationship, you're getting married. It sounds like, okay, you've dabbled in a bit of prevention and different hairstyles, but take it in your strides. I mean, there's no horror stories coming out here in terms of like getting absolutely rinsed for your hair.
Yeah.
So, and then you progress on to considering surgery.
Yeah.
Which is what it is.
Yeah, basically.
Which is really interesting to me.
This is how in my own mind was about it, and I think this is really overlooked for men's mental health. People look at bald men and just think, well, that was an easy decision. You shaved your head one day. And it's not. It was a battle that I'm pretty sure every single bald man has gone through themselves, mostly a silent battle as well, because we don't want to talk about it, because we don't want people to look at our scalps and look at our receding hairlines. And for me, it was just a daily battle that I was just so tired of fighting every day that even with a partner who is so supportive, it wasn't oh yeah, no, I think that'd be a good idea. Not once. She was like, you don't need to. Just go bald. She was so cool with just like, I don't care either way, like, you're still you. And that's amazing, but it still wasn't enough to go overcome that mental game that was going on in my head.
What was that mental game? Are you able to describe that for me? You said it was like a daily battle. What were you battling with?
It's like going back to when I was 19. It's then, you wake up, you look in the mirror, bed head, you see the receding hairline, the thinning top. And you think, right, now I've got to spend X amount of time making sure that looks right before I can even think about leaving. And then you think about the weather, like going through winters whilst you're receding, or, you're worried about showing off those hairlines or thinning top. The products you've got to use, it was a lot to have to carry every day. And then, throughout the day as well, you're thinking about it. Has something moved? Do I need to rearrange, my hair? Do I need to nip to the toilet to have a little, see if any scalp's showing through?
Right. So those things were coming up as well then,
Every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just got too much.
So at that point, the option of I could just allow this, I could just go bald, was totally off the table, right?
That was never on the table, yeah.
Yeah, was never something you would have considered. So what got you into starting to look at transplants and things like that? I know obviously you mentioned the upcoming wedding, but when or how did it what was it, Google searching? Was it a recommendation?
I'd heard of back then. I mean, obviously, I think it's quite popular now. People are quite happy just to, get on Instagram, influencers, say I've had a hair transplant here, there, and everywhere. And back then there wasn't that. It was just the couple of leaked stories from
like Rooney,
footballers or people like that. And I did think, might be out of my price range. But I thought there's no harm in finding out because I don't see any other way. So I went a couple of times. First time I went was for FUT.
Where's this? Sorry, where?
This is in London.
Okay, so just Googled what hair transplant clinics, found one.
I think this was probably just a Google search of what I could find looked all right. Whatever reviews are out there at that time. That's probably about 23, 24 at this point. And so I went up and it was for the FUT, which is the strip cut out from the back of your scalp. And I just did not like the idea because I thought, if I ever do have to shave my head after this, then I'm going to have this massive scar on the back of my head. I thought, what's worse? I've got that to contend with. And so that nothing came from that. The idea didn't leave my head, but I just wasn't keen on that part. But then shortly after that, FUE, which is the follicular, is that it?
Yeah.
Follicular unit extraction, the individual.
Yeah.
That came out, and once that became a bit more mainstream, that's then when the second time I went up to London.
What's the sort of time gap between these consultations?
2 or 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and again, still very much in my head of I want to do this. Going bald was still never on the table.
So in that 2 to 3 years, it was literally just you are essentially going with the flow in terms of how the hair loss is progressing, but just trying to maintain a style that looks as best you can, or
at this point, the hairstyle I'd adopted was just to call it quits on the the receding hairline. I thought I got 2 battles and I can only win one. I can either hide my hairline and show my thinning top, or I can just show my hairline and
Okay, so it was do I bring it forward to hide the hairline?
Yeah.
Or do I put it back to hide the crown?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I
tactical
just
move, dude.
Yeah, and I thought, do you know what? I've always had a fairly high forehead. And so I thought, I'll run with that and I'll just sweep it over and back and
Jude Law.
Yeah, hide those bits. So kind of had I had a fantastic barber.
A magician.
Yeah, I stuck with her for ages. And actually, amazingly, when I decided to shave my head, she actually stopped being a barber and became a paramedic.
Oh, nice.
Which is amazing.
Yeah. She couldn't deal with the betrayal.
Yeah. Kind of had this a bit longer left here, so it could cover that side, and then a bit longer on this side, so it could come back and cover that.
Okay.
And I ran with that for a few years, and that works. okay, but
Hair fibers, we dusting those on or not really?
I'd seen people with them. I thought I can.
Too obvious,
It's so
right? Yeah.
obvious. No, I
When you're in
wasn't.
in that world, it's yeah,
I couldn't do that. And I'd seen these, glue-on wigs and stuff. And as good as they look,
yeah,
I that wasn't for me.
yeah. No,
Just not
I'm
for
with
me.
you
I
on that.
just
Yeah,
yeah. It got to a point here with the wedding. I thought this look isn't. It's just not working for me. So yeah, that's when I started looking into the hair transplants again, and found what I thought was a decent place. A friend of mine had been there as well.
okay.
It looked like a great
For a transplant,
yeah, yeah,
right?
and
Okay.
his looked great. So I went to the same place, really nice clinic, surgery. I don't know what
Yeah,
you call them
clinic.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, book myself in.
So you just went up consultation. They were like, "Yep, sweet. How many grafts? 4,000 or something."
I think it was about 2,500.
Okay.
Yeah,
And they take pictures and whatnot, right? Line you up.
yeah. So yeah, we did the consultation. Went home.
Did you have to like
They sent
deposit
me.
up and stuff like that? Can you remember what that was like?
I think so. Yeah. But they sent a quote through, and then it was probably maybe like a month between. I can't quite remember from consultation to operation day,
Couldn't Klarna that one.
but it was fairly close.
Okay. Oh, really? It was like, okay, let's go, let's do it.
I think so. Yeah, as soon as we kind of thought, right, well, let's
Okay.
go ahead.
Can you remember the cost, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So I think it was about 8,000.
Okay.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot, but I think UK transplants, like
UK are
in London,
more.
yeah, that's pretty
But
like the
that
going rate, I would say, or at least at
yeah,
that time, right? You said it was quite new. They
it
probably
was.
bumped up the price
I
a bit
think
with
it's
that.
probably cheaper now, but that shows the gravity of how much this was playing on my mind. That
Yeah.
in comparison, 8 grand to have a full thick head of hair, it's like, oh, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Like
At the time, right? Yeah.
like if I'm gonna have a full head of hair for the rest of my life. Like, sweet.
And that was the thought process, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's
That is the problem. That's what we think when we look at hair transplants. We're sold this dream of it's going to be great. These hairs. Everything's going to be brilliant. You'll have a nice thick head of hair.
I think, just to speculate as well, it's like I mentioned this yesterday on another podcast. So I was like being asked questions about this whole thing, right? And it was like, at the end of the day, the pursuit is relief from the mental anguish that the hair loss is causing you, right? Because again, I will never tire of saying it. This does not hurt you physically in any way. It really is the mental battle, right?
Yeah.
And I guess then you've got two avenues. It's like you either try to relieve that mental anguish through accepting it and recognizing for yourself, like, oh, actually, I can handle this. This is totally fine. This isn't going to negatively impact my life. Or even if it does, I can handle that too. Or you try to get that mental relief from essentially covering up the baldness, right? And kind of disguising that physically so then you can kind of be like, okay, I don't have that problem anymore. And I guess that was the thought process going into the transplant, right? It's like, right, if I get all my hair back, well, I'm no longer balding.
Yeah.
But I guess the technicalities, which you're not thinking about at the time.
You only want to see the pros.
Yeah.
You don't want to ask the questions that are going to make you double think this amazing
Long term.
Yeah. I just thought, just windy days, rainy days, going swimming, like everything, just waking up and being like,
Yeah.
that Prince Charming sweep.
Yeah,
just thinking, I can't wait. All the different hairstyles I can do. It's going to be amazing.
So safe to say you were buzzing about getting it done. You were
Yeah.
like, right, let's do this. Okay, so you sign up, you pay up. Tell me just briefly, I guess, about the actual day. Was it quite not a bad experience?
Not bad at all. No, it was lovely. They put us up in a really nice hotel in London. Yeah, fine. They got me some nice lunch. The actual surgery itself is
Time consuming in that, I guess. But
yeah. So it was over 2 days. They did half per day. Um, and oh my God, the pain of those injections
Oh,
to
really? Yeah.
numb the scalp.
Right.
No one warns you about that. There's
Oh, really?
so many front and back, and each one you kind of hear this little like kind of crack
Oh, 'cause it's like right
as
here,
it kind
right?
of as
Mm.
it like pierces through like the oh yeah, it's horrible, and it's just yeah, the pain from those. I don't really like injections, so it's probably just me being a bit more of a wuss about it. But oh yeah, that was the worst bit, and it's quite uncomfortable as well because you're on like a massage type table, because you start your day off face down for I don't know, like 3 hours.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
cannot move. Nothing. You are there, um, just with your face through this hole, whilst they're getting all these bits out the back of your head, and then you turn over and it's next bit.
Pop it in.
Yeah. But apart from that, the actual procedure was nothing really
Yeah.
negative about it. It was all done very professionally. Real nice setup and everything.
What were your thoughts about the kind of recovery process and you know, walking around in the world having had a hair transplant? Okay, I think maybe you kind of see it a bit more, especially in certain parts of the world or whatnot. But was that because obviously it's an insecurity, right? One
Mm.
that you wanted to keep to yourself, and obviously if you've gone and got a hair transplant, then it's almost an advertisement, slightly of like, oh well, yeah, like on different levels, people are going to handle that differently. What I'm trying to say is, was that a consideration of like, oh, I'm just going to be walking around bandaged up, like whatever, or was it something that you wanted to keep hidden, or how did you navigate that part of it?
I didn't think about that until I was in that situation.
Right.
I didn't really know what it was going to look like, and yeah, I mean it's safe to say I didn't really do much for the following month,
Okay.
because I mean as soon as you come out of the clinic, you've got bandages on your head, and they give you this hat that as soon as I walked into the hotel, is like, oh, you're one that's just had a hair transplant.
Okay.
Oh, okay, great.
The hair transplant hat.
Yeah, and you're left with scabs, all over your heads, which last for a long time, and you can't wash them off.
Mm.
It's a long process. The first 2 weeks, you can't get any sunlight on your scalp,
Okay.
so you're pretty much indoors for 2 weeks, and then it's just slowly starting to build up the washing of it, and
Okay. So once like it was bandages off and that, you kind of went out a bit more
yeah.
and things
Well,
like
for
that.
me, once the scabs had gone, because they were very obvious,
Okay.
and
But
the
was it?
swelling was huge.
Sorry to interrupt, dude. But what was it? So was it a case of like, I'm not going to the supermarket looking like this. I'm just going to stay indoors.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so it was on that level.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, yeah,
yeah.
this is literally like I'm indoors. I don't want anyone to see this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because
Okay.
that's the whole thing. You want it to look like you haven't had a hair transplant. I mean, one of the big giveaway is that you have to shave your head. It's ironic, isn't it? Your
At
biggest
the start,
insecurity is
yeah.
what the first thing they do is they come at you with shears. Um, so yeah, that was just kind of about a month riding that out, and then it was just looking at growing back your hair.
Okay, so when you were confident, it was like, okay, this maybe just looks like I've got a short haircut. I can handle that. Then you
Yeah,
felt confident enough to get back out into the world, right?
yeah, yeah. But I probably still wore hats quite a lot because the units they put in fall out.
Yeah.
They all come back out, which is terrifying in the shower when you think it's not worked.
Yeah, it's all falling out. Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess in your mind, yeah, if you're not understanding the biology of it, you're thinking like, well, the hair they put in is falling out now.
yeah,
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 scary process.
horrendous.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it takes so long for the hair to grow back. You kind of have to just grin and bear it at that point.
Right. And then eventually you start to kind of see the regrowth and stuff like that. What was the clinic like with aftercare? Because obviously we mentioned the drugs and the minoxidil and things like that before, the Rogaine and whatnot. And obviously, if you want to keep hold of as much as you can, then pretty much everyone is saying that's a necessity, right? To
Yeah.
be doing those things. Did they mention that to you or?
No, they were shocking with aftercare, to be honest. I mean, I'll put it down to just my experience because so many people get it. There must be better clinics out there, but mine in particular, there was zero aftercare.
Okay.
Whereas they had said there would be aftercare and there'd be checking in, a lot, and consultations to check how it's all
The
coming along
progress.
and
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z. But no, nothing.
Okay.
No,
So no advice on like getting on the medications and things like that. So you didn't do any of that basically.
no, no, no. I'd already said I didn't want to touch any,
Mm.
the stronger things. And they said I didn't have to
Really? That's interesting.
because the hairs that come out from the back and sides when put in the front, they're not affected by the chemical that
Yeah.
thins out the hair. So I was like, well, that's fine then. But it was only, for me, it all started to come to light when my hair started growing back,
Mm.
and it was obviously thinner on top,
Okay.
all over. I thought, oh shit, like what have I done?
What like this isn't what I thought it was going to look like.
I didn't know that I was thin on top, and I thought, oh shit, is it all going?
Oh, you mean like at the back at the crown?
Yeah, like,
Okay,
yeah,
right,
yeah,
right. Crux of the matter is, you've had the hair transplant.
yeah.
Okay, you stayed indoors for a bit. Aftercare wasn't what it should have been, really. And then, how long do these results start to come through? It's like 9 to 12 months, right? When you to see the finished result.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like I didn't care a huge amount of the aftercare because I thought, I've got it now.
Mm.
I'm done. That's there. And yeah, so then hair starts growing through, and all seems alright. It's not as thick as I'd have liked it to have been. And they were put in at a slightly different angle to my natural hair growth, but it was manageable. It was better than what it was, so I was good, and that kind of saw me through the wedding.
Okay, which was the original goal, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So on your wedding day, you did feel,
more confident.
when you say more confident, this is interesting. Were the hair loss concerns or the balding concerns, preoccupation, was it totally gone? Or was it still like, oh, can you kind of still see it? That's because that's really fascinating to me, that part.
Yeah. So I was more confident, but they were still there because I was thinning.
Right.
So my hair transplant I had done in uh, April the 11th, 2016, and I got married September 14th, 2017.
Okay.
So my hair had grown back absolutely fine, but it had highlighted to me that I was thinning all over on top.
Right.
And the hair transplant I had done was just tackling those patches at the front there.
Right. They hadn't put anything in the back.
No, because that wasn't a concern when I was looking to have it done. I didn't realise that I was starting to thin. I think that had kind of just started to happen, so it wasn't noticeable enough. And that, I think when you start thinning on top, it's quite a quick development. And so that was a concern, but not one I really wanted to face quite yet. So there was still those times in front of the mirror, making sure my hair was just right. But the concern was just getting married and, dealing with it afterwards.
Yeah. No, it's interesting that, again, the guy that was on the channel recently who, similar to you, had kind of got the transplant done in the front, right? I don't know if you saw that one. And then he was like, kind of, again, went sort of thin. I mean, he was taking all the drugs and that. It's just where he'd lost quite a lot of hair, and the first transplant, however many grafts, had only sort of put in most in the front and then a bit around the crown. Obviously didn't give him the results of, oh, I don't look, I'm losing my hair at all. And obviously it was still on his mind, like, well, I still look like I'm going bald, so where does this end? Like, do I go for another hair transplant and then another one? Like, how long is this road going to go on for?
That's it, and that was my concern. They took so much out of the back there. Thought, how much more can come out before that's then a concern?
Right, yeah.
Like, is that then just going to start being thin and patchy because it's all up here now?
How do you mind if I have a look?
Yeah,
How
yeah,
does
yeah.
it look?
I don't think you can
Oh
really
no,
tell.
no, very.
If you look
to the
closely,
trained
you can see,
eye, yeah,
you can see some
to
dots.
the trained eye like me, Yeah, but to the layman, absolutely not.
No,
No.
you're not going
So
to
that's
tell.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and that, I mean, that just, I'm relieved I never went for the FUT because that strip would
Yeah, that would be visible.
ear to ear kind of thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, so, I was standing on top and think, oh, how much more can I do? How much more of an investment do you really want to put into this?
Mm.
So it's like, you start second questions.
So was it almost, because it wasn't a case of like, I love this, this is great, like, this is exactly what I wanted, and then over time you're like, oh no, what's happening? Was it more of a like, it never really quenched that thirst fully, or how, you know what I mean? How was that whole...
I don't it was never as good as I thought it was going to be.
Right.
I thought I was going to have that thick, full head of hair, but it never came to that. It never was as thick as I thought they were going to make it. Someone says 2,500 hair follicles, you think, oh, that's thick,
Mm.
but it wasn't. And yeah, so I thought, well, how many more of these do I want to do? And if I'm not 100% happy now,
When did it come up again of like, okay, I'm not satisfied with this. What's next for me? Like, do you know what I mean? How long after the surgery, or let's say after the regrowth wedding era, were you able to, like you said, like mostly just be like, okay, I've had it done. This is looking better. Put it to the back of the mind. How long before it kind of resurfaced of like, okay, I'm gonna have to do something else about this now because this is not.
I mean, I would say from from year after, I don't know, it may have just been continually, it was still there. I was still having to make sure I was doing my hair right. That transplant never put all those worries to bed. But yeah, it was really, and this seems bizarre, but there's two instances that kept highlighting it to me. One, every time I'd walk under a spotlight in front of a mirror, like bathrooms or whatever,
Right, changing rooms are a
I looked
classic
like
for
I was
that.
walking through an X-ray because instantly you just see this like fuzz over your scalp. You just think that's thin,
Right.
that's thin. And then the second was so I've at my home, most got CCTV,
Mm.
and every time I walk underneath one, and like if I catch it back, I would just see the white from my scalp showing through my hair,
Right.
and just thinking this is getting out of hand.
Okay. So obviously the hair loss is continued,
Mm.
going thin on top,
Yeah.
losing it at the back now, and you're thinking, right, this isn't doing it for me. So you weren't thinking, okay, I'll just get another hair transplant then.
No, after a lot of discussions with my wife and my family, these sort of things, you can't just go on a whim and just think, oh, fine, I'll do it. And I mean, for me, going to Turkey was never an option because you hear all sorts of stories. But yeah, for me, after a lot of discussion of, do I want to then look at spending the same again or going through all of that? I don't know. I'd kind of reached a point where I thought, I'm just so tired of this battle. If the last one didn't satisfy that hunger to get the results I wanted, I thought, will the next one? I could just then dump the same amount of money and be in this position I am now in a couple of years.
Still feel the same.
Am I just going to keep chasing this?
Yeah.
And like I said, if I am destined to go fully bald, then I'm just going to have a very weird scalp with these patchy bits on the back of my head. And I think I thought through everything, and I thought against any more of that surgery,
Okay.
which I'm so happy about now.
Mm.
And yeah, that led me towards. I mean, I went a few years. When did I shave it off?
Because it's an investment. Like another thing in your sort of experience must have been, well, I've invested a fair amount into this hair. Like I'm not just gonna on a whim now bin it off because I've kind of been doing a lot to not have to do that. So that's an added layer for you, like in your journey, right?
Well, yeah,
You're very much like on the fence there
because
because,
you think if I shave it off, I'm shaving off 8 grand as well.
yeah, that's what I
Like
mean. Yeah.
that's what's the worst? What situation is the best outcome here? Do I just keep putting money into that pot?
Mm.
Because I've already invested. It's like gambling.
Yeah.
Like I've already put 100 quid on the table.
Like
You
a
know,
leaky bucket, like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. A few years passed, and that's when I decided that
you'd had enough.
I'd had enough. I mean, there was a turning point, a big life event for me and my family that I think for me really changed my mental state. I don't know what I would be like now if it hadn't happened, and that was my mum passed away,
Right.
um, and that really it gave me this mentality of I just don't give a shit.
Mm.
I don't give a shit what you think.
Mm.
If you have you got if you've got a problem with my hair or me going bald, I don't care. Big events like that can really
Gave you a different perspective, right?
different perspective of what actually matters in life.
Right.
And for me, it really did zero down to my health, my family's health, and the time I've got with people. Didn't matter about the vanity.
Yeah.
I just
Well, vanity kind of aside as well, it sounds like as you've described it, it was taking up a lot of energy, really. Like you were, well,
mm.
even a lot is you could use that term loosely. It was taking up energy. It was taking up
It's
time
taking up
and energy.
happiness.
Yeah.
Mm.
Which at that point, having dealt with the loss, you're thinking you only have a certain amount of that. Where am I going to be allocating this time and energy?
Yeah,
It sounds like that was the consideration for you at that point.
hugely. Yeah, we you can choose how you spend your time, and I didn't want to waste any more of my time thinking about my hair
Mm.
or how I looked.
Yeah.
And I wish more men could have that epiphany, because what a weight that is when that is taken off your shoulders.
Mm.
The best decision, and I don't regret getting a hair transplant.
Part of your journey.
It's my journey. I've learnt from it. There weren't all the stories. I partially blame you for not being around then.
Yeah.
No,
Should have
but
gone bold sooner.
that's it. There weren't these channels. There weren't people like yourself being there for men that are going bald. Because I mean, you probably couldn't count how many people you've helped with your channel with
No.
the stories that you publish, all of this. And I found you around the same time as looking at shaving my head because I needed to find bald inspiration.
Okay, yeah.
I think it was you and the Bald Bastard, the two accounts that I started
Nice.
following first.
Okay, cool, yeah.
And that was a huge help to me.
Shout out Tom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it was just like it's okay to be bald.
Yeah.
It's cool. There's a huge community.
That kind of switched you onto it, did it?
Yeah,
Tell me,
yeah.
let's talk a bit more about that then. So obviously you had this life event, and obviously unfortunate. Sorry to hear about that. And changes your perspective. You have a conversation with the family, and then you start to think, look, I don't really feel like I want to invest more and more going down that road. So then, can you remember the first sort of thoughts or searches, or what kind of flipped it for you then, where you are now starting to think, you know what, maybe I can make peace with this, and maybe just going bold is the way to do that. How did you kind of transition?
Well, I'd started cutting my own hair at home because it was throughout lockdown. I was working through lockdown anyway because I was working in the funeral trade, and that was just
Okay.
work as usual. And so doing that, I was giving myself some pretty dodgy haircuts as it was. So I'd kind of already had that ridicule of what have
Having
you
a bad
done?
haircut.
Yeah. And I really do put it down mainly to just not, it literally was about a month after my mum passed. I just thought, I'm done.
Done with this.
I'm
Yeah.
done. And I'd wish I'd done it sooner. Yeah.
So that's interesting though. So you already had the sort of, as I describe it, the power was in your hands. You'd already been cutting your hair,
Yeah.
struggling with that. It sounds like, trying to do it, the whole thing. And you're
Yeah.
thinking, look, I don't even like this anymore. It's taking energy up. I've got the power to get rid. And is that how it kind of manifested? That's how it kind of came out, was it?
Yeah, I used to cut my hair in my back garden, and I think I just said to my wife, my daughter was about, she was just over 1 year old then as well. I said to my wife, should I just go, like, should I just do a buzz cut? I think it just happened like that. And I just thought, fuck it, let's try it. And I did it. I think I went down to like a 3,
Yeah.
you know. I don't think there's many men that go straight for
No,
the...
that's the conservative approach, as I describe it. Yeah.
Yeah, I went for that, and carried on doing a little fade on the sides and back.
Yeah, gradual, nice.
Yeah, real eased it in. I mean, it's not easing it in. I went into work and everyone was like,
Yeah.
but not in a bad way. They're like, oh my God, dude, like, nice one.
Yeah.
They probably all thought, about time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was just like that. Just, I'm done.
Started going shorter.
Yeah, I'm done.
Decided you were done with it.
I woke up and just didn't second guess it.
And tell me how that was kind of feeling. Was that a big deal going into that? Were you worried about scarring or how it was going to look, or was it really more at the forefront of your mind was, oh, I just want to be done with this? So that was the priority.
That was, yeah. I just thought, if they're scarring, they're scarring.
Right, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's going to be some dots, isn't it?
You were over it. Sounds like you were over it.
Yeah,
at that
yeah.
point.
It had been a few years, so I knew the scarring wouldn't be that obvious.
Yeah.
They're just, some kind of pinprick kind of things.
Or the classics, like head shape, things like that. Were these at the forefront of your mind, or was
that is a gamble. Luckily, I'd already seen my head shape when they did the transplant and shaved my head. And actually, my mum in particular had said, you actually look really
looks
good.
All right.
Like
Yeah.
shaved. Yeah, you should just stay like that. It's a bit late, isn't it?
Yeah,
I'm recovering from having it done. So yeah, I'd already kind of thought, head shape's all right. It would be better than it was then because obviously you're ballooned out with all of the swelling. But yeah, I mean, the main concern was, what about if it's like really obvious, like strip of hair, this like curve of, implanted hair at the front and then nothing there. But I mean, luckily, as you can see, there's not.
Yeah.
Can't really tell.
No, it's not like super solid, or they've not like put in too much here, which I think is probably lucky, right?
That's
because you do see that. Like again, when you're in this world, and like me, I'm always looking out for things. If you know, you know.
Yeah.
But no, I mean they've not messed that up at all, which is good.
Yeah. And do you know what? I think what really grates me about like the hair loss industry in general is the face they put on social media. They're giving hair transplants to people that have got great head of hair. They're filling in these spaces. You see the before and after, you think,
yeah, dude. Did you see the one I shared the other day on the stories? It's exactly what you're talking about. There's a notorious place in Turkey that does it for influencers. And
was it German?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the most normal hairline you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah.
And he's like bringing it right down here, super square. And it's like, at what point is it just like, that's like a genuine, like, we're talking about mental health, but that's almost like a genuine like condition that you're trying to like spark in people by doing things like that.
But it is though, isn't it? They're trying to make money out of...
Well, promoting insecurity, essentially. Yeah, that one was particularly bonkers.
Yeah.
And you see it a lot now. And I think, especially for young guys, if you're already concerned about that and a cheeky little one type of like balding or something into Google, and now you're inundated with stuff like that, it paints a very sort of different picture, doesn't it, of the reality.
Yeah.
And really quickly, I mean, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too much, but I say to guys, if you are in that predicament and you're a guy who's spending a lot of time on Instagram or social media or whatever, seriously, go to like any beach in the world or any football game or sports event, and please take note of the reality, because obviously they're in those places you get to see what the real world looks like, and it is not immaculate hairlines that you get served up online. So anyway, that's a bit of a side note, but tell me about the kind of post, yeah, you mentioned, a few reactions to things in work, but how did you feel in yourself? You did say like, you felt infinitely better, but describe that to me a bit more.
It's just I remember waking up thinking, like, I'm gonna do it. I can just literally put some clothes on. I'm done.
Mm.
Rather than that 20 minutes in the mirror, I can save that every day.
Well, that had been a feature of your life for years at this point, right?
Yeah, yeah, totally, yeah. And it was just the craziest thing. Thinking, I'm gonna do anything. I can get out of the shower and like dry clothes on. I am done. I'm out the house. See ya. The only I think the biggest thing after shaving your head is getting that first reaction from everyone out the way, family, friends, workplace, and for me it was no negativity. There was nothing bad, and whether everyone was just being nice, but everyone said actually really suits you.
Mm.
I mean, like most men, I've maintained a thick beard. Yeah, such a relief, getting those first reactions out of the way. They're always a little bit daunting,
Yeah.
but no, otherwise it was great. Yeah, yeah. And then for me, I pretty soon made it shorter and shorter until I was just bald. And it was from looking at your reviews. I got myself the Braun Series 9.
Yeah, nice. Top tier electric, that thing, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, straight off the bat. Oh, that was brilliant. And then I got one of the there's a Leaf.
Yeah, yeah, the safety razor thing. The
That's it.
twig one or the actual leaf one?
The Twig, I think it's got
Okay,
the
yeah.
three.
Oh, the leaf, yeah. The 3 blade jobby, yeah.
That's it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. To give kind of alternate with those, and
Yeah,
yeah.
nice.
No, I mean I quite happily leave it to grow for a few days, and
Yeah. Yeah, you get your sweet spot with it, you get your routines down, your products, and then those sorts of things iron out. I mean, it is a bit of a learning curve when you start, I think. I was trying everything in the
yeah,
shower, out the shower,
massively.
electric,
Yeah, and it's just getting used to it as well. Like it takes a long time in the beginning,
Mm.
but it does get quicker. Like how hard to push, and how
Yeah.
the places that take the longest, back of the head, and yeah, learning curve with the sun exposure
Yeah, yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, you can't underestimate that. Especially in the summer, I'm like got that factor 50 stuff on the daily at the moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I've made that mistake a couple of times. Yeah.
because it keeps you looking young. No, man. I mean, listen, it's fantastic. I mean, at that point, I mean, I would love to kind of hound you for like, tell me more though. Tell me more about what it's like after. But I think the beautiful thing about this point in your story is like with the hair loss and that, it kind of wraps up at that point, which is the whole. We talked earlier about relieving of the mental anguish and moving past it. I mean, that's the point, right? That's what you wanted.
It is, yeah. And I've got an abundance more confidence than I did back then, because I've got nothing in my mind. I've got nothing anyone can point out at me saying
Yeah.
that for me that was a big weakness, and that if anyone were to have pointed the finger at me and said, "Oh, you're losing your hair," that would have broken me. Whereas
Yeah.
there's nothing anyone can point at me and say that now. And for me, I feel like a much stronger person, because if we could all just embrace ourselves,
Mm.
however we grow, we're all so different. We'll change at different stages. Just embrace it. Doesn't matter. No one cares.
Yeah.
No one cares what you look like. People care about who you are as a person.
Mm. There's something so powerful in being secure in that as well. Like being secure in yourself is huge,
Yeah.
and it is a journey for everyone. We all go through these changes and experiences, and so it's not to say that like if you're not there, then there's something wrong, because it that takes experience, that takes time, and I think.
Yeah.
But one of the amazing things that comes from going through the experience of losing your hair is that you learn that experience to like accept yourself,
Yeah.
or for lack of a better phrase at this point in my mind, it forces you to do that. You're
Yeah.
confronted with, I need to be comfortable with who I am. But when you get to that point, it's like, oh wow, this is a great feeling that I didn't have before.
Yeah.
Before hair loss.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for you, but
Yeah, it
obviously
is, yeah.
going through that, you weren't feeling that way, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, doing what I do now, like, so I've got my social media channels. I do my cold plunges
Yeah,
every
please.
day.
Yeah, mention that. Yeah.
But I mean, the thing is that the person I was when I had hair, I never would have done that.
No,
I
that's a
never,
good point.
firstly, would have been on camera that much in case a comment came on, so talking about my hair, thinning hair or anything. Um, Getting my hair wet on camera and posting it up. Hell no. No, I wouldn't have done that. Like that's opening yourself up yeah, that's how I felt, is that people are definitely going to
Yeah.
give me some flack for that, you know. But they wouldn't have. But now
Well, you didn't know that
I
at
didn't
the time.
know.
That was something that you feared, and
Yeah,
you didn't
that
know
was a
that. So
big fear. But now I don't have those fears, and I do what I want. It doesn't matter.
yeah, and it's out there. Like you made the very good point of like you've got nothing to hide.
Yeah,
You've got nothing to hide now,
that's a beautiful feeling. That's
which
the
is
best.
such a. I mean, that is freedom essentially,
Yeah.
right? Which is what I think a huge part of this accepting the whole balding thing and moving past it. That's where that comes from, right? It's because you don't have anything to hide. I think I've described it as the advert method before, because you're literally like, it's so obvious to the world what's going on here. I've got nothing to fear.
Yeah.
And nor do you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and do you know what? I actually had a comment on my TikTok a few days ago.
Is this the ginger thing?
Yeah, you see it, yeah.
I did see that.
Did you shave your head because you're ginger?
Yeah. Which is,
If only, right?
Yeah.
Like, no, yeah. I mean, if they're the only comments I get because I'm bald.
Well, that's so funny because maybe that person genuinely is like they're in their mind. It's like we would never think that being or someone taking the mick out of you being ginger would ever kind of be above the whole hair loss thing, right?
Yeah.
But in that instance, it is.
Yeah.
It seemingly is, which is
yeah.
again like something that when you're dealing with the insecurity of losing your hair, you would never imagine, right?
Yeah.
Incredible. But no, listen, I mean, just mention a bit more about that, about what you are doing on the socials, because obviously we'll link them down below. So tell everyone where they can find you for that.
So I mean, I'm on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, but I do, cold plunges, fitness. I'm trying to become the person I want to be. I lacked a lot of confidence before doing this journey. And so I'm just trying to push myself in all different ways, and it's been a fun journey so far.
Share that. Excellent, mate. No, this has been a pleasure. Is there, I want to ask before we kind of sign off here, is there anything that you would want to share with people watching and listening, guys that are maybe struggling, or is there something that you can pinpoint in your own journey that was a real sort of like thing that you did or thought that helped you, made a real positive movement in your experience with losing your hair, or anything at all that you kind of want to share?
Be open about it. I think for me, talking to the people around me, don't keep it to yourself. Don't just think, I'll fight this battle on my own and cover up and no one needs to know. Talk about it, because that took a lot of power away from that mental battle for me, was just talking to my family or the people close to me about it, because it gave me some people outside of my own heads to actually bring me a bit further down, saying it's not that bad. That was a big thing for me.
Major key, different perspective. Harry, been a real pleasure, brother.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me
Thank
on.
you so much for coming and for enjoying, and for everyone for watching, listening. Hope you enjoyed this one. As always, we'll see you in the next one. Love it, mate. I was going to do a round of applause then. Love it.